Alrighty, welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and I got a comment on a previous video by Voices in My Head 88. Nice to meet you, bud. I'm a Toshio 1987 myself, so we're just about the same age. He says, nice vid, nice tips, but I got another question. I'm new to Pathfinder system and rules, and I like to play a pure DPS rogue. Now, my question is, normally I have no special skills. I got my attack, but is there any skill that I can use to disappear with like black powder or teleportation? By the way, I'm level 6. That is a great question, and so I've decided to feature that in my next video. Oh, by the way, Voices in My Head, I like your profile image. That looks like a Hellsing Ultimate reference, and I'm wondering if you've seen Hellsing Abridged. It's pretty hilarious. It's the definitive Hellsing experience. So let's talk about rogues and rogue skills, specifically how to deal damage, because that is one of the primary roles of a rogue, how sneak attack works, and then how you can augment your existing abilities with some neat magical features, because pretty much all of the really cool stuff you can do in Pathfinder you do with magic. You can do things like Dirty Trick and Knockdown, and those are regular mundane feat based abilities that you can get, and I'll show you how to pick up those feats. But all in all, the best way, in my humble opinion, to play an exciting rogue is to play... I will show you. So here's our profile picture for our character we're making here. This is going to sort of guide our progression of the character. Notice how he has a magical wand. I've talked about this class before, so let's just pick Elf just because we can, and we don't really care about appearance. Let's get right on into the good stuff. So if we go to the rogue class. Now, you mentioned that you were a DPS rogue, so I figure you might be a standard rogue or maybe a knife master. Knife masters are the best rogue class for standard sneak attack because they get this right here, sneak stab. They roll d8s for their sneak attack instead of d6s. What does that mean? A d is a die. So instead of rolling 6-sided dice to see how much damage you do, you roll 8-sided dice. So you, instead of doing 1 to 6 damage on your sneak attack for each sneak attack die that you roll, you deal 1 to 8 damage. So you have more damage potential, and that should increase your average damage commensurately, as the average you'll be dealing is 4 instead of 3. So, Knife Master is the best for just dealing damage with your sneak attacks, but I tend to favor Eldritch Scoundrel, and I'll show you why. Eldritch Scoundrel does not start with sneak attack, but gets their first one at level 3, and then every 3 levels after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, every 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get 1 every 4, and you're like, well, that's not good sneak attack damage, and you're right. Right out of the gate, at level 6, you're going to have 1 die of sneak attack damage, but you'll also have level 2 spells, and this spell, Sense Vitals, gives you 1 sneak attack die per 3 caster levels. So what does that mean? Like, already things are getting complicated here, but stick with me. So you're getting 1 per 4, essentially, with your regular sneak attack, and you're getting 1 per 3 with this spell that you can cast that lasts for 1 round per caster level. So you cast it at the beginning of combat, and then you wait in there and you start dealing damage. It should last for the duration of an average single encounter. That means you're dealing 1 per 4 plus 1 per 3. So at level 6, level 7 is where it's going to get a little bit better. At level 6, you'll deal 2 sneak attack dice for your Sense Vitals and 1 for your class levels. So a total of 3 sneak attack dice, which is pretty good. To compare that, a standard rogue is going to be rolling 1, 2, 3 sneak attack dice. So you'll be level with a standard rogue, but here's where it gets good. There's a feat called Accomplished Sneak Attacker, where you can select this feat, and it gives you an additional sneak attack roll die, so it'd be a d6 for you, as though you'd gained a level in rogue, and you can have it count for up to half your class level in sneak attack damage. What does that mean? So if you're a regular rogue and you're taking all your levels in rogue, you can only get 1 sneak attack die every other level. So at level 1 you're rolling a d6, at level 3 you're rolling 2d6, 5 you're rolling 3d6 extra damage for your sneak attack damage. That's nothing new. With Accomplished Sneak Attacker, you can add an extra d6, but you can only do that if you're not up to half your level of regular sneak attack. That's not the best way to explain it, but basically, Accomplished Sneak Attacker doesn't work for a straight rogue because you already have the most sneak attack you can have, but it works for an Eldritch Scoundrel because you're not getting that sneak attack every other level. What that means is that at level 6, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 d6 sneak attack damage if you choose the Accomplished Sneak Attacker feat, and you cast at the beginning of combat the Sense Vitals spell, which I highly recommend you fill your spell book with. And if you take the Metamagic Extend or the Metamagic Empower or Maximize feats, you can also raise the level of Sense Vitals to fill your spell book at higher spell levels with it, and that's getting into a more complicated technique that I won't get into here. But now is a good time to talk about how sneak attack damage actually works and how to be able to consistently deal sneak attack damage in combat. So let's get out of here and let's load up a different game, and while it's loading, I'm going to talk to you about So this is my newest playthrough of the game, and I haven't really showed this off very much, but I want to do a video that really talks about what I have going on here. And I have as my main character what are they called? A Vivisectionist, which is an alchemist that has some basically spells you can cast on yourself. Excuse me, I got a little crud in my throat. And you also get sneak attack as a rogue of the same level. So I get a sneak attack die every other level, and I also get some really cool spells that I can cast on myself. Now, where does this come in for sneak attacking? Basically, I can show you what it's like to sneak attack, even though I don't actually have a regular rogue in my party. It's the same tactics for my alchemist, even though my alchemist is a way cooler character than a standard rogue, in my humble opinion. You may want to consider using a rogue. So let's get into trouble here. I know that there's the Hodag layer here, so let's just go in here and kill a Hodag. You know what? Actually, let's go somewhere else. Where can we go? Let's find some trouble. So I want to find an encounter with multiple enemies. I know there's one up here, so we'll get into some trouble in just a moment if we get a chance. Yeah, be patient with me. So while this is loading up, I'll tell you about the strategies we're going to use, and then I'll demonstrate them. So there's 3 ways to be able to use sneak attack damage on an enemy. 1, attack an enemy who's unaware of you. So that would be using stealth to sneak up to them and then whack them with your weapon. And in that first round, your sneak attack damage will be added to your regular damage. After that, you'll only be able to do normal damage to them unless you fill one of the other two conditions that I'll talk about. What am I saying here? So when you're in combat, in a surprise round, you get to deal sneak attack on people that don't know you're there. And then, bam, you stab them, they know you're there. What do you do now? Now it's time to flank und spank. So, the way flanking works in Pathfinder is that if two characters are targeting one enemy in melee, that enemy is considered to be flanked. So I have Tank Baby here, who's wielding a glaive, which is a reach weapon, but it can still give you flanking. And then I have Dada here, who is my sneak attacker. Look at how classy this guy is with his top hat and his golden cauldron on his back. And, Full Metal Alchemist references for days. This guy is Maze Hughes. He sneak attacks his enemies with the knives, and the only thing he has to fear is unkillable abominations. Oh, hello, unkillable abomination. All right, let's get into trouble. So we're gonna fight this guy, and you see that this is not a surprise round. He's very aware of Dada, so we're not going to be surprise attacking him for sneak attack damage. Let's just have Tank Baby and Dada engage this guy, and then you two can just get over here and be beautiful. And here you see, even though he's aware of me, Dada is dealing sneak attack damage because Tank Baby is also targeting this enemy. So if you're in combat, no matter how many enemies you're facing, get some melee fighter to engage an enemy along with your rogue, and you'll be able to deal constant sneak attack damage to them. And we'll see how this goes. It generally works out fairly well for you. This guy's actually really tough. So, man, Tank Baby is just tanking those hits, as you do as a baby who is also a tank. So, this is another thing that I wanted to bring up. Disengaging is a really good option as a rogue. Dada actually doesn't have the best armor class right now. What's it at, a 25? Let's go ahead and buff that up. So, we'll get you, come on, get back in combat. And then you guys can support now, because this is a really tough enemy. So you guys can jump in there as well. And you see that as long as somebody is targeting that enemy along with, ooh, jeez, he took a lot to take down. As long as two people are targeting an enemy in melee, you can deal that sneak attack damage. Now, I mentioned that there's actually a third way to deal sneak attack damage, and maybe I'll be able to demonstrate that for you as well. Let's go to Tank Baby and get some heals up here. Tank Baby is a full charisma, as you see with her stat card. Paladin, and Paladins get some really, really good healing abilities at 4th level. Because they can channel energy and lay on hands. So you don't need to have a cleric to heal your party. Bring a charisma-based paladin, and you will be just fine for the most part. So here we are wading into combat once again. And also, let's take a look at Dada here. You can see he's very much dexterity-based, but we can buff that up even more with our abilities. But I want to talk about dealing damage as a rogue, because again, this is the same principle. You can see that my weapons deal a d6 plus 8 damage, and that's because I'm wielding agile weapons. Stratagem in my offhand is an agile rapier. Actually, that's my main hand. And Deadly Grace is also an agile rapier. Now, I'm an elf, so I get rapier weapon proficiency. That's one of the reasons why I selected elf as a class. And I know this is a lot of information, but this is just my way of introducing you guys to Pathfinder. There's so many things to talk about that I'll just talk about everything. And you guys can learn by following in my footsteps. Look at that cute little Tank Baby. She was so little. Okay, and my beard was so short. I need to shave my beard. Where are we? So agile weapons add your dexterity modifier instead of your strength modifier to damage. So when you're planning out your character, having a super high dexterity doesn't mean you're going to deal small amounts of damage in regular melee combat. And then we also have Piranha Strike, which is the dexterity equivalent of power attack. And power attack is just absolutely essential for a physical damage-based character, in my humble opinion. So here we are facing multiple enemies, and you see they've formed a line against us, and we have our line against them. We have our summoned creatures that we cannot directly control, and then we have these two here, or these three, I should say, and I'm going to work the flank. So I targeted this guy and just splattered him. Now I'm going to target this next person in the line, and because the wolves are already targeting him, Dada gets free sneak attacks against them, and then they just get shredded. So when you're facing multiple enemies, pick one side of the line and work your way down that side. Does that make sense? Once again, it's the old flank and spank maneuver. Now, I talked about making Dada more powerful, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to cast Bark Skin on ourselves. We're going to use our mutagen dexterity. We're going to cast heroism again on ourselves because we only have self targets at this point. We're going to do Cat's Grace. We're going to pop a Bless, and we're gonna make ourselves smaller. So all of these things are spell-like abilities that you get as an alchemist, and I've just selected which ones I want to have in my repertoire. Alchemist is a really interesting class, and I highly recommend you look into it. So now let's look at our stats. We're up to a 31 dexterity, which gives us a plus 10 to hit because we have weapon finesse. And look at that. Our attack is up to a plus 17. We're pretty much guaranteed to hit. And then a 16 on our other hand. And we have plus 11 to our damage here, plus 15 to our damage over there. Just incredible amounts of ability. So again, we'll go in there. We'll bring in the wolves for some sneak attack. There we go. And we'll just have Dada come in there and just wreck these guys. Watch what happens. So that is the power of an alchemist. We deal 32 sneak attack damage with poison, which is just awesome. And then there, I don't even, how much damage was that? 41! Oh my gosh. Alright, yeah, that was a critical hit, but still, that's not bad damage at level 8. So in 2 levels, you know, you'll be there. And one of the things that I'd like to recommend to you, I've closed the window. One of the things that I'd like to recommend, one, Critical Role, great show on Geek and Sundry. Look up Critical Role right there. They have 2 different campaigns. These are some guys playing Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to get into understanding tabletop D&D and like how it works, I highly recommend you do. It's really fun. And ooh, hey, we insta-killed that trollhound. Look at that. We're just tearing through these guys. Remember how hard our first fight was against that guy Jason? Well, you see that once I've buffed myself, it's just ridiculous the amount of damage we can do. So let's wrap this up. Number 1, if you want cool abilities, really magic is the best way to do it. And you have 2 good options to give yourself cool magical abilities as a rogue. You can create an alchemist character who is the what's it called? The Vivisectionist right here. That's the alchemist class that gets sneak attack, and then you get those spells you can cast on yourself. And I could choose things like invisibility, and Bark Skin gives me extra AC, Cat's Grace. We can cast haste on ourselves and heroism, all these things that really improve our ability to deal damage and do cool things. But when it comes to stealth, the invisibility spell is the ultimate stealth. It gives you plus 20 to your stealth score, and also makes you invisible until you attack something. And then later on you can get improved invisibility, which functions the same way as regular invisibility, except that you just stay invisible after you attack someone. And that does mean that they can target you, but they're basically fighting blind at that point, which gives you free sneak attacks against them and all kinds of cool stuff. Now, if you're a regular rogue and you want to be able to use some magical abilities on yourself, you can put points into Use Magic Device, and this is a charisma-based skill. And that will allow you to use a few things like wands and scrolls, but it takes a while before you can actually use anything good, so that's not the best way to be able to use magic on yourself. And then also, as a rogue, if you want to be able to use the magic, you could choose to be an Eldritch scoundrel, and we talked about that and about how that's going to give you a reduced sneak attack, but eventually, if you put your points into the right feats and if you select the appropriate spells, you can actually keep up with a rogue, maybe even surpass them in sneak attack damage under the right circumstances. What else? Also, you could just have a spellcaster in your party, a sorcerer, or a wizard, any number of things that could cast spells like invisibility or improved invisibility on you. And then there's also the feat called Dirty Trick. And you can look up the description of Dirty Trick on the internet. Just look up, Pathfinder Kingmaker feats, and you'll find a list of feats in the game, and then look up Dirty Trick. You can use a combat maneuver, which is like a special attack, to blind your enemy. So there's a chance that you can blind the enemy if you hit them with an attack, but it's less reliable than using things like invisibility. And when it comes down to the reason that you need to use those abilities as a rogue, the main reason is to get that initial sneak attack, but I would actually recommend you not use that technique. As I demonstrated, you can fight just fine using your sneak attack in a regular melee combat, and that's something that not a lot of people know about, because again, it's called sneak attack. Like, you assume that you would have to be sneaking to attack someone like that, but what you can actually do is just gang up on people. So think of it more as a carefully aimed attack, where one of your other melee fighters is engaging the enemy, and then you jump in there and you can hit them with that precision damage even if they know exactly where you are. And another thing I haven't mentioned is that sneak attack also works with ranged weapons. So if you don't have the best armor class, again, Dada's armor class right now is a 33, which to compare with our paladin that's wearing full plate, 24. So 33 is a pretty good armor class. You can see this troll that's throwing rocks gets a +1 to its chance to hit, so it just can't hit me with rocks. What else? What else do we have here? What's this troll? This troll over here is getting a +9 to its attacks, so it can roll a 28 unless it rolls a natural 20, which is an automatic hit. So it only has a 5% chance to hit me, just like most everything else. So this has been a look at sneak attack damage in the game. The best way to deal sneak attack damage is to get 2 melee fighters to engage the enemy that you want to sneak attack. And if you're using a ranged weapon, you got to have 2 people on them, and then your ranged attacks can deal sneak attack damage. If you're using a melee weapon, you got to have 1 person on them, and then also send your sneak attacker to attack them with a melee weapon. And because there's a total of 2 people attacking them, that enemy is always considered flanked, and you can deal that good, consistent sneak attack damage that we showed you. What else? I think I've covered just about everything I want to with that one. A sneak attack is a great damage source in this game, and unlike other D&D style games, in Pathfinder Kingmaker, there are actually very few things that are absolutely immune to sneak attack damage. There are some things that take reduced damage or have a chance to resist sneak attack damage, but there's not so many things that can negate it entirely. So let's go ahead and haste our party. Bam, we got that good haste going on. Again, alchemists are just really cool, and I know you as an anime fan. You may enjoy Full Metal Alchemist already, and if you weren't aware of the alchemist class, build a Vivisectionist, sneak attack everything, profit. Did I do that right? Anyway, guys, I've had a great time answering that question today with a far longer answer than anyone would ever need for a question. But I took the opportunity to go through a few things in Pathfinder that a new player might not be aware of, and one of the aspects of this game is I've been playing D&D games for ages, like ever since I was a little kid down there in the basement, but the game just keeps on changing. What in the crud is a greater trollhound? I don't know what it is, I just know I want it dead. And look at that, because it was a surprise round there, we dealt some sneak attack damage and we just exploded that guy. Alright, guys, I will catch you in the next video. Have a great time. Bye-bye.